Hi there, everyone. It's 4 o'clock in New York. Breaking news this afternoon from the Department of Justice and its efforts to satisfy Donald Trump's insatiable appetite for political retribution after previously trying and failing to target former director of the FBI, Jim Comey. The DOJ has secured a new indictment against one of Donald Trump's most prominent perceived enemies. We do not yet know the full details of the charges against Comey, and we are waiting on a press conference from the Department of Justice scheduled for this hour. But here's what we do know. The indictment has to do with this post the former FBI director made on his Instagram account almost a year ago. Shells on a beach, spelling out 8647 with the caption, "Cool shell formation on my beach walk." The Trump administration has claimed that that post was a call for violence against Donald Trump because of the slang term 86 that usually means to get rid of something. Immediately after the post, the Secret Service had Jim Comey and his wife Patrice followed by law enforcement from their vacation home in North Carolina all the way up the eastern seaboard to their home in the Washington, D.C. area before Jim Comey voluntarily sat for an interview, and the Justice Department dropped the matter at that time. The former director of the FBI came on this program last year and explained that he thought the seashells that he says were put there by someone else were nothing more than clever political speech, but that he immediately deleted that post when people thought that he was somehow calling for violence. Watch what he told us then. So your position, even after all of this, the Secret Service calling you and bringing you in for questioning, is that the phrase, the message on the shells, was political speech and is political speech?
Yeah, by somebody. I actually didn't think of it as political speech by me, but I thought, what a clever way to express a political view. The shells were the same color for each of the letters, so different colors for the letters. It took a lot of work. Somebody with artistic flair did that, and I have a hard time believing it was anybody with a dark intention, and it certainly was no dark intention on my part or my spouse's part.
So what we have today, this revived attempt to target Jim Comey by, we should keep in mind, acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, is coming at an important time for acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. It comes weeks after Pam Bondi was fired, in some part, perhaps large part, for her failures in carrying out Donald Trump's retribution agenda. But it's not clear what new evidence, if any, exists or that Blanche has uncovered to make this case successful now. Today's news of Comey's indictment does, though, feel like a quintessential Trump news cycle, one crisis wiped off the front page by another crisis. But this breaking news is part of the very same slow-motion collision that we've been covering for a decade now between Trump and those who dare to use their First Amendment right to criticize him. Donald Trump is locked in a cycle right now of political collapse, held up by political retribution, and behind it all is a near-obsessive whole-of-government campaign designed to stifle and punish speech that Trump does not like. Make no mistake, Jim Comey is being punished today for speaking out 8 years ago about Trump's efforts to politicize the FBI while he was president the first time. Jimmy Kimmel is being attacked today for telegraphing Donald Trump's frailties. Tish James spoke through her legal filings the truth about Trump.org being a fraud, so Trump sought to prosecute her. Law firms were attacked for standing with Donald Trump's political opponents, so Trump punished them. Universities have been attacked for creating safe spaces for criticizing administration priorities, so they too have been brought to heel. Artists have been purged from the Kennedy Center and replaced with cronies. Winners and losers have been picked in big media based on their political alliances. The list goes on and on and on. And every day they want us to think it's a new story, but it is the same story. It is the oldest Trump story. And at its core, and interestingly, perhaps the reason Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly are getting off the Trump train and stepping away from Donald Trump is because the truth of it is that Donald Trump is waging an all-out war on the First Amendment and on free speech. That is where we begin today. Former Assistant Special Agent in charge at the FBI and National Security and Intelligence Analyst Michael Feinberg is back with us. Also joining us, the former director of the CIA and our senior national security and intelligence analyst, John Brennan's here. Also joining us, senior investigative reporter Carol Lenig. Let me start with you, Director Brennan, because the reality is there is a similar zeal to punish you for doing more than exercising your First Amendment rights, for doing your job as the then director of the CIA. What is it like to sort of watch this news come across it's not a wire anymore, but come across our devices?
Well, Nicole, an overused term is appalling. I find it appalling. Jim Comey served as a U.S. Attorney and the Deputy Attorney General for President George W. Bush. He served as the Director of FBI for President Barack Obama. It is absurd to think that Jim Comey would be advocating violence against anyone, much less a President of the United States. I served with Jim Comey during the last years of the Obama administration. He is somebody who I think served his country with integrity, with professionalism, and with determination to make sure that the rule of law was going to be followed. And so, as you pointed out, I think there has been a litany of these efforts over the past number of years, past year and a half, by Donald Trump to, exact revenge against some of his perceived political adversaries. So I feel very, very dismayed that Jim Comey is going through this and has to go through more of it. I am in that crowd of folks who has been targeted by Donald Trump. And it just shows just how much, the Department of Justice has fallen. I was listening earlier today to the remarks of Queen Elizabeth when she addressed the joint session of Congress back in the 1950s. And one of her lines was that we should never take the ideals of democracy for granted. And the rule of law and the use of the justice system is one of those real institutions and hallmarks of democratic principles. And it's so unfortunate that, over the course of so many years, and I guess we were taking that rule of law and the Department of Justice's efforts for granted. But obviously we cannot now. And it's so unfortunate that individuals like Todd Blanche, who had a very, respectable reputation before joining ranks with Donald Trump, is willing to appease Donald Trump by doing these things against individuals who serve their country, I think, admirably and with noble distinction.
I want to be clear, we are not here because Matt Gaetz has been indicted, but Matt Gaetz in February of 2024 posted this with the term 86, quote, "We've now 86'd McCarthy, McDaniel, McConnell. Better days are ahead." Carol Lenig, you do, I understand, have the indictment. Tell us what you're learning.
Yeah, it was just filed moments ago, Nicole, and forgive me for looking down at my phone during some of this. Comey is charged with 2 federal counts of crimes, and they are first making specific threats against the president and his successors, and then also making threats across interstate commerce. And I just want to say that this is filed, as we wrote a few hours ago, in the Eastern District of New York, which had an open investigation basically hours after Jim Comey posted this picture on or around May 15th, 2025, on his Instagram page. As you know, Nicole, he pretty quickly withdrew and took down this picture, wanting to make clear to people that he thought it might be political speech by someone, pretty clever political speech, but he did not want anyone to infer that he had any malevolent or violent intention or was trying to incite any violence. He was interviewed by the Secret Service as he drove home after he drove home from his vacation in North Carolina back to his home in Virginia. The Protective Intelligence Division, which chases down anybody who is making threats online about the president, often goes out to places after a threat's made in a bar, after a threat's made online, after a threat is made at the gates of the White House, interviews those individuals, and that's what they did with Jim Comey. And these are the charges that are resulting today out of the Eastern District of North Carolina.
The first time you said Eastern District of New York, I just want to make sure that you've got what I've got in front of you, the Eastern District of North Carolina, right? Yes. I'm uncomfortable to even read this, but this is an indictment, so I will. Michael Feinberg, count one, on or about May 15, 2025, in the Eastern District of North Carolina, the defendant, Jim Comey, did knowingly and willfully make a threat to take the life of and inflict bodily harm upon the President of the United States, in that he publicly posted a photograph on the internet social media site Instagram, which depicted seashells arranged in a pattern making out 8647, in which a reasonable recipient who's familiar with the circumstances would interpret as a serious expression of an intent to do harm to the President of the United States. I mean, again, Matt Gaetz posted, "We've 86'd McCarthy, McDaniel, McConnell, better days are ahead." Is there any reasonable interpretation that Matt Gaetz meant we'd killed them? I mean, is this in law enforcement an accepted phrase that is associated with threats of death?
No, I actually first learned the phrase when I was working the door at a bar in Chicago shortly after I graduated college, where we would use it to refer to ejecting unruly customers. So when I saw Jim Comey's post on Instagram from last year, I simply assumed it was a reference to removing the president from office. It is a very large leap to claim that that is a threat of violence. And because of that, I don't want the phrasing I'm about to use to make light of how malevolent and destructive of constitutional norms this Justice Department is being with this indictment. But this is the single dumbest charging decision I have ever seen in my entire law enforcement career or in my even longer career as an attorney.